it's no ideas original. You know it's no ideas original. You know it's no ideas original.
No Ideas Original Podcast featuring Shannon, Mr. Rob, and Ken. We're here joined with Speedy Legs. First of all, I want to say congratulations on being inducted into the Breaker Hall of Fame.
I wasn't expecting that.
You wasn't? Well, here you are, Speedy Legs. Here you are. We'll get it. We'll touch on it. We'll get on it. We'll get into that a little bit more.
What's funny is that New York City recognized me before Miami did.
Oh, wow.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
I think because my connection is with New York and Miami. So in Miami, I'm one of the first guys that's introduced from a guy from the Bronx. and then I'm one of the last guys left from that generation.
Oh, got you.
So the thing is that in New York, when breaking was dormant, the only guys that I knew that were breaking were the street hitters on the deuce.
Okay.
Their style of breaking to me was more like how it was really done on the street, but they did it for money.
Right.
I looked at it different. I looked at it as a different art form compared to the hustle on the street to make a buck. You know what I mean?
Right.
Those are the guys that I got respect from at first. And those are the only guys I saw doing it still in the mid 80s. So, yes, New York, because I mean, like my story's never been really told, guys.
Talk about it.
So let's backtrack. Let's add some context to this discussion. So tell us a little bit about Speedy Legs and tell us what inspires you to dance.
Well, in comparison to Crazy Legs, because there's Crazy Legs and there's Speedy Legs. Speedy Legs was really actually my martial arts nickname.
Oh, okay.
It's a common thread of martial arts and B-boys. It's a common thread here.
It wasn't really a B-boy name yet. Not yet. I got the name because I was really deeply into the martial arts. And I met the guy that I met from the Bronx. He wasn't a martial artist, but he liked it. So most kids that I would resonate with that were from New York, they were either Bruce Lee fans, Kung Fu fans, or had some kind of, relationship with the arts. You know what I mean? So I get I meet this cat. It's a long story, but to make it short, I ran into this cat in the early 80s. Must have been about 81, almost going into 82. And he had just moved a block away from my house, and I was out there practicing katas one day. I used to go to the schoolyard to be by myself, to practice by myself. Because in the projects where I lived at, it was kind of hard to practice, especially you know what I mean. So I would go there just to meditate and just go through these motions, you know, when I was by myself. And then I ran into this fellow that was completely different from the other kids that were growing up around my neighborhood, you know. This guy, you know, he had the nice combed tight fro, he had a nice tight fro. He had a sweatshirt with Old English letters on it. I had never seen it in the front. Like, the people that I saw were DJs, and the DJs usually wore their name on the back.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So the front to me kind of caught my attention. That's when I knew he wasn't from my neighborhood. So he starts talking to me, and he's watching me, right? And he's talking to me about Bruce Lee, and I'm kind of like, yeah. I'm trying to practice. I'm not really trying to, you know, because I used to have people come up to me all the time, just always trying to talk to me when they saw me practicing, right? And you know, I was also a street gymnast, so I taught myself how to do gymnastics on the street because I couldn't afford to go to the YMCA or any of that at that time, you know. Mm-hmm. I'm self-taught, like most kids that they grow up, you know, on the street, you know, jumping off of mattresses and stuff like that. So that's pretty much how I learned, right? So, you know, I'm there like doing handsprings and all that. So that definitely caught his attention, right? So we were talking, but I didn't know anything about what he was into till like a few weeks later. I went to a junior varsity football game at the high school, mm-hmm. and he lived about a block away from the high school, and I lived about 3 blocks away. So I would walk to the high school. That was my high school that I went to at the time. And when I was at the football game, you know, I see this big circle form. And I hear like screaming and a lot of just, I thought it was a fight going on in there, right? So when I take a peek and I look inside, it was the same fellow that I met, except he was contorting his body on one hand around in rotations.
Right.
I had never seen that. I didn't even know what that was. But I thought it was probably the coolest thing I ever seen, you know what I mean? And I said, wow, that's pretty cool. And compared to like, I didn't even, you know what was funny, guys, that it looked like gymnastics to me, but I had never seen it in a floor exercise.
Right. It was controlled gymnastics.
Yeah. You know, when you see gymnastics on the floor exercise, it's back handsprings. They do some type of contorting with the body and they're on their hands and all of that, but not a guy spinning from shoulder to shoulder and neck.
Right.
I knew that wasn't gymnastics. I just didn't know what it was called yet. See what I mean? So I seen that, and that was it. And then I go to the skating rink that was around the way also, and I had never seen the skating rink stop skating unless there was a fight or something. And you remember back in those days, there was still a lot of gangs, and some of these gangs were becoming what we called crews. They were transforming from a gang to a crew, you know. Mm-hmm. But around my way, there was a lot of DJ crews, like DJs that wore these, you know, and the ladies, the young girls used to flock around these guys a lot.
That's right.
So what I grew up seeing first was the DJ aspect, and the early rap records that were playing at the skating ring was everything from the Sugar Hill Gang to everything that came out on Sugar Hill Records at the time. Curtis Blow, Treacherous 3. Like, these were the acts of that time, of that era. Right? So, but what we saw as far as street dancing was popping. So popping, a lot of popping and a lot of locking. No breaking. No breaking yet. Not yet. Not till I saw this guy. See what I mean? So then, the guy was at the skating rink, and then there was another guy. That it was kind of like coincidental that these two guys that were both from New York, right, would not only move, one of them would move into my neighborhood, but this other guy was also down here, but he lived in an area we called Hollywood, which was completely different than Miami,
Right.
And
New Yorkers go everywhere, I tell you.
Listen, absolutely. You're right about that. And these two guys were competing against each other. And that's what we call the battle. So these two guys were going down on each other. And to me, that was interesting also. Now, mind you, no movies, nothing, it wasn't called hip hop yet, none of that. Now, did it have the name breaking? Yes, it was called breaking already. But the moves, when you went down on the floor and you spun,
right,
they were called spin moves.
Okay.
Not power moves. They were called spin moves. Windmills were called continuous backspins or neck moves. Neck moves, continuous backspin, footwork, freezes. Those are the terminologies. And then top rock, down rock. We called footwork down rock. That would be top rocking on top.
Yeah.
Sit on top. And the minute he came down, the terminology was down rocking. That's how I came in contact with it. And that's, I started learning from watching and being around him. The name Speedy Legs was really my martial arts name. So I needed a street name, right? So I already had a nickname. So people around my way used to call me either Ricky Lee, Bruce Lee, Karate Man, and Speedy Legs. Now the name Speedy Legs stuck because a lot of the kids that I grew up with around the way, they knew that one of my favorite cartoons was the little Mexican mouse called Speedy Gonzalez.
Speedy Gonzalez, huh?
So I was very fast and powerful with my legs.
Nice.
And the reason why I was very fast and powerful, because most of the guys I grew up with doing karate and stuff, they were very slow. They were very slow in kicking.
Right.
And they emphasized more with the hands than with the legs. But I remember, when I started, as a teenager, in my early teens, I started reading a lot of the Bruce Lee books. And my uncle and my other cousins, they were very heavily into Bruce Lee. So they would pass down like books for me to read and understand the philosophy, because at that time you couldn't learn that art form.
Right. So here it is. You get karate and b-boy, and you're merging the fusion of both. Wow, that must have been like.
And listen, and this is funny because a lot of the b-boys that I would meet later, like Ken Swift and some of these guys,
right,
they were very influenced by kung fu flicks. And a lot of the breakers from around the neighborhoods in New York City, that we would exchange information with. Because see, back in those days, we didn't have no internet, no cell phone. Everything was talk. So let's say I heard about you, right? And I would say, oh yeah, there's this kid from up the block from around this neighborhood. Yo, he spins on his thumb. And I'm like, get out of here. I say, yeah, but the thing is that we would go looking for these people.
That word of mouth, yeah.
I was living in Miami at the time before I went to New York, right?
Right.
And I remember they would mention this guy Spider-Man, the man of 1,000 moves.
Ooh. 1,000 moves. You see that?
That was embedded in my head.
You know what's funny? When you hear that, right? That sound like a kung fu dude. A dude of 1,000 moves. That's like a karate movie.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, so I'm coming up and I'm already like exchanging information, right? And they start talking to me about Spy, Track 2, and these were the cross Puerto Rican guys. I came, I'm Hispanic, I'm Cuban, and the guy that I learned from, he looked black, but he was Cuban also.
Wow.
How about
So
that?
he was an Afro-Cuban living in the Bronx.
How about that?
Oh, okay.
So the thing is that, this whole thing with Puerto Ricans and blacks, there was more than just Puerto Ricans. There was Dominicans,
Cuban, and even from Central America, man.
and they were, the thing is that the PR people, they were more prideful in themselves and they stood out more.
Right.
But like I met a lot of guys that were from Manhattan and the Bronx, and they were Cuban.
Mm-hmm.
Doze. You know who Doze is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Speedy writer.
Yeah.
Rockstar Doze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's half Cuban and half black.
Yeah. So is Fat Joe. A lot of them that have Cuban. Listen, man, there's so much history that comes behind B-boy and just under the umbrella of hip hop that have changed the lives of so many people. And you got to think, in the 70s, there were so many people coming from other countries for a better way of life from their former countries. And New York has always been the epicenter. Even today, it's the epicenter. You know what I mean? But B-boying had a way of just opening up and allowing, I guess, young people at that time to be free and free of expression, whether you were Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominican, black, it didn't matter. It gave you an opportunity to be free. But
the most important thing besides that hip hop itself is a Caribbean fused culture.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these individuals, from Grandmaster Flash to Bambaataa, all these guys are Caribbean people. They're all from the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Who Herc.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So the thing is
they understood the drum, and they knew what the drum and how the drum would galvanize. And that's why we had the jams, and we need jams again, because that's what drew the crowd. But let me ask you this, from a B-boy standpoint, because like in hip hop, it has its elements. You got DJing, you got graffiti, you got MCing. But the breakdancing, they don't get their flowers the way all the other elements do. Explain to me why. Why do you think that is?
Well, when we came in contact with breaking, there was only a few. Like in New York City, there were many people doing it, but the top crews were Dynamic, Rocksteady, New York City Breakers, which were originally the Floor Masters, because the guy that I learned from was a floor master before they became the New York City Breakers.
Who was that?
You talking about the New York City Breakers?
Who you learned from? Yeah.
Oh, the guy I learned from, his name was Mr. Flex.
Okay.
So he was one of the original floor masters before they became the New York City Breakers.
Correct.
which was Chino, Noel, Matthew, which is Mr. Glide, Powerful Pexter, Little Lep, and Fast Break. All these guys were all together. You know?
Shout out to Fast Break.
Shout out to
We
Fast
just spoke to Fast Break.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my boy Richie. Richie Fast Break Williams.
That's right.
Yeah.
He grew up with Flex. So Flex was his friend, which later became my friend. So kind of like it was passed down to me. I continued it. So in Miami at the time, there were a lot of people coming down from New York, and there were a lot of crews here. And Miami had a real big hip hop scene before anybody knew who Luke was. So everybody thinks that hip hop started with Luke and Miami bass music. They're absolutely wrong. Do you know that the record Planet Rock was broken in Miami?
Yeah, I didn't know that, but that was a big record.
But I can believe it, though.
Yeah.
So that record was such an impact here that it went gold here, and it became the national anthem here, which created the sound for electro bass, which becomes bass music, and then that's how it transforms.
Wow. That's a jewel right there, bro.
Yeah.
So Miami has a source of history that's never been recognized and touched because nobody knows it. It's been very so the thing is that Miami had its own hip hop scene as far as the early 80s, late 70s already. It was already here. And the thing is, you got to remember something. Miami is the entrance from the Caribbean and the South and Central Americas, where everything comes in through here before it goes up north.
That's a fact.
You know, starting with the drugs, guys. You guys know that.
Well, we know everything comes through that pipeline. Just
So
I don't lose focus on your questions. The whole thing about the B-boy stuff that you were asking me about, you know what it is? B-boying is very articulate, and it's like fighting. A lot of people want to learn how to fight, but they don't want to go through the training or understand the fusion of what makes a fighter. And that's why I related so well with breaking, because
I see. Yeah.
It was fighting to me, but fighting in rhythm, in dance, in motion, you know?
Right.
So what happens is, breaking the components of it doesn't get its flowers, is because a lot of people don't understand the articulation of it.
Okay.
So if you go back to breaking to the early 70s, the era of Dancing Doug, the Nigga Twins, Trixie, like the guys that were around, and others. I'm pretty sure there were many others. There was a guy named Rubber Band, which that guy was a legend himself. And all these guys that were street dancing in the early days,
Right.
are the foundational aspect of what transforms later into breaking. Now you got to remember, there's popping, there's mocking, there's rocking. These are the early dances from the 70s. These dances were before breaking. So breaking doesn't start taking form.
Would it be safe to say
Yeah.
that these things have let me ask the question. Would it be safe to say that disco parented breaking?
Definitely. I love it. I love that you asked that. Oh yeah. Listen, I'm gonna tell you guys something.
The reason why I said that is because
Disco is something nobody wants to talk about, but disco, listen, it depends. Okay, going back to Miami. You know what turns 50 years old this year? You ever heard of TK Records?
TK.
No, I'm not
Look
familiar.
at
No.
TK Records.
Okay.
Okay, so you know who came out of TK Records, right?
No.
Casey and the Sunshine Band.
KC. Yeah.
Oh,
Peter Brown.
There was us an Australian group. Wasn't they an Australian group?
Oh man, they're from Miami. They're from Hialeah, Florida.
I'm thinking of BGs. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, the BGs landed here and recorded and learned from the musicians that were already here.
Right.
Like, TK Records started in the early 70s, 1973. Casey and the Sunshine Band, Get Down Tonight, Boogie Shoes.
Right.
yeah.
You know, That's the Way I Like It, and so on and so on. Now, you remember a group called T Connection?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
T Connection is from TK Records.
Look at that.
Betty Wright. You know who Betty Wright is?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
TK Records. You ever heard of Peter Brown?
No.
Dun it, come on and dance with me.
Yeah.
That's Peter Brown.
And the reason I bring up disco because Kawan was it 138? He mentioned how succinct and synchronized, martial arts were with breaking. It was like learning. He mentioned the word the hustle. Now I remember my mother teaching me the hustle. My mother was a big disco dancer. She went to the garage. She went to them clubs back in the days. And when she came home, she would make me dance for her to do the freaking hustle.
Hey, when you talk to your mom, ask her if she remembers Larry Levon.
She probably does.
Larry Levon was the DJ that made the garage what it was.
Oh, then she knows.
Trust me, I know. I was there. I know the connection for you to understand breaking and hip hop, you have to know the music.
You have to know the music.
If you don't know the music, then you don't know the culture. The music defines the dance, the fashion, the social environment is all based on the genre of the music.
So do you think that right now, because from it looks like a lot of times as far as like the overall culture, a lot of stuff is being driven more by overseas than in America right now. Whatever.
I'm gonna tell you.
That's my question.
I had a lot of friends from overseas that used to come to Miami because they knew about the funk music that came from Miami.
Okay.
So a lot of the early funk and disco records, especially with James Brown. Do you know that Aretha's Rock Steady that was recorded in 1971 was recorded in Miami, Florida in Criteria Studios?
You know now.
No.
So the thing is that the guy that started TK Records was very big into R&B. His name was Henry Stone. Look him up. When you look him up, you're going to understand the connection between him, R&B, and music. He was the biggest distributor of records in dance and soul and funk in the early 70s in South Florida. That guy, I mean, if you guys came and spent a weekend down here and I introduced you to some of these cats, it'd blow your mind.
I just typed in his name, Henry Stone, and Miami Sound came up.
There you go. For the Europeans, what makes them different from us, they get government support.
Okay.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
The government supports them with grants and federal money that they are able to infuse into their communities and keep the movement going. Here in America, we're too busy about capitalizing on an idea that we come up and we make up a dance called
the Boogaloo.
Magic Boogaloo.
Right.
Just an example. We promote the hell out of it, blah, blah, blah. Once we're done with it, we kick it out. Now what's the next thing?
Yeah.
So we don't have time to preserve culture. And the reason I tell you guys this is because I've lived it for the past 40 years. And the thing is, my journey from Miami to New York was when I went to New York City 30 years ago, there were no B-boy events in New York. We were working with Zulu Nation at the time. So we were doing Zulu Nation events in Miami while they were doing theirs in New York, because we had a chapter here in Miami. So we worked directly with Bambaataa. At the time, Crazy Legs was doing an event called the Rocksteady Anniversary, which started in 93. At the same time that he was doing that, this was the golden era of rap, when Biggie, Wu-Tang, everybody would come after, one after the other. So that was the era, right? You know, Guru, Gangstar, all of that. So around that time, hip-hop is recognized more than ever, and the Europeans were always on the bandwagon with the soul, funk, and disco. Disco's really big in Europe. So soul and funk records. Soul and funk records are huge over there. So going back to why are they more supportive? Because they get grants. And with these grants, see, here in America, look at us struggling just to keep hip hop and breaking alive, because there's not enough organizations
I agree.
that are looking for these grants and government and local support. Listen, guys, there's no art, there's no dance, there's no music class in any of our schools. So the only way that we can bring that back is through hip hop. That's what I'm trying to do now in Miami with a new organization we started, you know, which is the International Hip Hop Foundation. It's a nonprofit 501c that we just started out here to just grab hip hop internationally and bring them to Miami because of the Caribbean scene.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
You know, look, the reason breaking has become a sport now and basically a pathway. I'm trying to find something here to show you that I may have lying around. Oh, okay. Let me see. Hold on. I'll show you something.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You see this symbol right here, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You see this one?
Yeah.
The red, white, and blue one?
Yeah.
All right. So that's actually a silhouette of me doing a 1990.
Okay.
So this logo turns 30 years old this month. It's the 30th year anniversary.
You're the Jerry West of breaking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm looking at
This right here
That's a dope
is
concept.
what
I like that.
is what made breaking go the direction to become a sport.
Nice.
I like that concept. That's a dope concept right there.
What is
Guys, something I've never gotten the credit for it.
that's
no.
amazing.
Wow.
That's amazing.
The Europeans are getting more credit on breaking getting to the Olympics because they came to America. They saw what we were doing here and took it back to Europe.
That's crazy.
Now, there was an event in Germany called Battle of the Year. So Battle of the Year was a European breaking competition that started in 1992.
Right.
Okay.
And it was a group competition. Like it was like a bunch of guys in a group that would have to showcase after showcase, and they had to battle and compete in the finals. And it was all the European nations around Europe competing at this event. So while I was watching this, I said to one of my friends here, if we don't start something in America, they're gonna take breaking from us.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And to me, I listen, I love the Europeans and I love to compete with them, and it's all good and dandy, but I didn't want us to lose our art.
Right. And have someone else rewrite it.
Yeah.
Last question, Speedy Legs, because then we gotta end. But what does it mean to you to be inducted into the Breaking Hall of Fame?
I thought I wasn't expecting it.
Hmm.
And the thing is that it feels good because I got recognized by New York City.
Mm.
I mean, maybe, I mean, I wasn't able to make it there because I've been having some situations I've been dealing with my health and my mom's health. It's been a little challenging and difficult, but it's like, look, every person in the game that was up there that got inducted and honored, all those people have played a pinnacle part in its contribution.
Right.
For me to get recognized was great, but I don't think everybody knows my story,
Mm.
Gotcha.
and they don't understand my connection from Miami to New York and New York to Miami.
Mm.
And it's okay because sometimes there's politics involved, and there's certain people that want to hold on. Like me, I did my time. I gave what I could give to breaking.
Mm.
Gotcha.
And whoever else comes after me and takes it farther, I got to acknowledge that and give that person credit.
Dope.
That's
You
respect.
see what I mean?
Yeah.
And I felt that being inducted was only the beginning
How about
of
that?
me being able to not just tell my story, but to really, like, to me, it's more than a story. It's more than you interviewing me and asking me a question. For me, it's kind of like, okay, guys, what are we going to do about breaking now?
Right.
Mm.
How are we going to get breaking to get its real flowers?
Let's create
It's
an
real.
action plan. Right.
Facts.
Create
You
an
know?
action plan. Right.
It's kind of like I was telling Doug that. I was telling Doug, look, man, I'm glad that you're still doing this award show. I'm glad that you've taken the initiative because this is taboo. Like, people talk about doing something for breaking, but
Mhm.
nobody does anything.
Yeah.
Mr. Doug stepped up, baby.
Doug stepped up his game politically, and that's the whole thing. The thing is, like, it's about me. Like, I would have never known about you if I would have never spoken to you. You would have never known about me if you would have never spoken to me. Even though, let's say, you may have a different point of view on the art form than I have. Like, for me, like, even though I looked at it athletically, remember this, like, before we sign off, because I know you guys got to go. But the thing is that, what was my gift to breaking? Well, my gift to breaking compared to the guys I grew up with, I looked at it athletically.
Right.
So when breaking went like this, I was going like this.
Mm.
I knew what the Europeans were doing. I was watching them.
Mm.
They were getting more athletic, but only one thing, they left behind: the knowledge, the art form, the articulation, and the culture.
Yeah.
So you got to grab these things, these 5 elements. Without these 5 elements, see, breaking itself has 5 elements, just like hip hop. So if you don't infuse these 5 elements, then breaking is no longer breaking. It's just gymnastics now.
How about that?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. That's what when I think about it.
And another thing I was going to leave you guys with is, another thing that was important to me in breaking was the sound of the drum, the interpretation of the break, the percussion. And in Miami, the reason it was so big here was because of the percussion sound. Miami's a city that's into percussion.
Okay.
Like, New York is into horns and jazz, stuff like that, piano. Miami's into this.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Miami has the Afro Caribbean sound, from reggae to salsa, Haitian compa, all these different sounds.
All one big melting pot gumbo.
Yep.
But guys, man, yeah, we definitely got to talk again. Thank you for having me on.
Sure. Speedy Legs, give everybody your social media information.
Speedy, you the best, Speedy.
You guys look me up on IG as Legs LEGS 777. I'm also BBoy Speedy Legs H2E on Facebook.
Appreciate you, Speedy Legs. Thank you.
Speedy, appreciate you, bro.
Salute, bro.
I appreciate Doug and you guys for doing this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.